A $2,000 pistol should embarrass a budget gun. That's what I believed until a guy at the range handed me his expensive pistol like it was supposed to end the argument. And yes, it felt good. Clean trigger, nice balance, smooth enough to make you understand why people pay stupid money for pistols. But the harder I ran it, the more careful it wanted me to be. Perfect grip, perfect pace, perfect little rich gun behavior. Then I picked up a budget pistol I had brought almost as a throwaway. Timer on, press out. Third shot hits, and the sight keeps coming back like somebody tuned the thing in a back room. I push faster. Grip got uglier. Sweat started slipping. It still didn't fall apart. That is when the price gap started looking fake. So this is not cheap guns that are good enough. These are budget pistols that make $2,000 guns look like a scam when the shooting gets real. Earlier this year, I was on the line with a buddy who is a serious Glock guy. Not loud. Worse. Quiet. The kind who looks at your pistol for half a second and decides if it even belongs near the conversation. I set the PSA Dagger Micro on the bench, and he gave it that look, like, cute. You brought the cheap clone. I didn't defend it, I just slid it over and said, run it. He picked it up expecting every budget gun problem to show up at once. Bad grip, snappy recoil, mushy reset, cheap micro-compact behavior. But after the first few shots, his face changed. The grip locked in cleaner than he expected. The sight came back quicker than it should have. It didn't have that cheap pogo stick snap that makes you slow down and babysit the gun. He pushed it faster, and the Dagger Micro stayed controlled enough to make the price feel stupid. That is where it gets uncomfortable. I'm not saying it has the same long-term trust as a proven premium carry pistol, and that still has to be earned. But when a pistol this cheap gives you familiar controls, everyday carry size, optic-ready practicality, and shooting manners this close, you start asking an ugly question. Are some expensive micro-carry pistols really giving you more gun, or just a cleaner logo? He handed it back like nothing happened, then loaded another mag anyway, and the next one made a forgotten Beretta look like a flat-out steal. The problem started when the cheap Beretta refused to act cheap. Last weekend, I was out on a buddy's ranch near Bandera, helping him zero optics. He had his staccato on the table, looking expensive and proud. I had the Beretta APX A1, which I brought because it was cheap enough to run hard without babying it. I'd already written it off in my head. Another budget pistol, another plastic gun people ignore in the case. Then we started running the same drills. First string, I expected the gap to show. His gun should have made mine feel like a tool from the bargain bin. But the APX A1 didn't embarrass itself. It stayed flat, cycled smooth, and the trigger kept breaking, cleaner than I wanted to admit. By the second string, I was pushing it harder. Dust, heat, sweaty hands, bad grip. I kept waiting for that cheap gun feeling to show up. It never really did. My buddy finally lowered his pistol and said, "Bro, that thing should not shoot like that for the money." And that was the problem. Not that the Beretta beat a $2,000 pistol in every way. It didn't. The grip is still chunky, and for all-day appendix carry, it prints more than I like. But when a forgotten budget Beretta can run beside expensive hardware and not look scared, the price gap starts feeling personal. I bought it expecting good enough. It gave me just enough to make expensive pistols look nervous. I bought the Arex Delta Gen 2 for the wrong reason. Not because I trusted it. Not because I thought it would embarrass expensive pistols. I bought it because it was cheap enough that I wouldn't cry if it got scratched, wet, dirty, or tossed around like a truck gun. That changed near second during a hard storm. My truck had died close to a flooded stretch, rain beating the windshield so hard it sounded like gravel. I had the Delta in the console, and when the situation behind me started feeling wrong, I reached for it without thinking. That was the part I remembered later. No hesitation in the grip, no slippery, hollow feel, no little budget gun voice in my head saying, "Are you sure about this?" Even with wet hands and a bad pulse, it came up steady. And from the range time I already had with it, that made sense. The trigger was cleaner than the price suggested. Recoil stayed flatter than expected. It never had that loose, cheap snap that makes you slow down just to manage the gun. The slide is a little tall, and in Texas heat it can print more than I like. But for the money, the Delta does something dangerous. It gives you enough control, confidence, and clean shooting that spending $2,000 starts feeling less like an upgrade and more like you just paid extra to feel safer about the logo. The Ruger RXM started bothering me before I even fired it. Not because it looked special, because it made the expensive stuff across the counter look like it was charging rent for things that should already be normal. Modular frame, optic ready slide, familiar grip angle, Ruger name, budget price. It wasn't trying to be pretty, it was trying to remove excuses. That is what made it dangerous. I kept thinking about all the pistols people dress up as premium because they finally come ready for the optic you already plan to mount, or because the grip does not need $300 of work before it fits your hand. The RXM just put that whole conversation on the table for less money. When I ran it, it didn't feel like some hand-fit custom masterpiece. Good. That was never the point. The point was that it came up naturally, tracked clean enough, and gave me the modern setup without making me feel like I had to pay a luxury tax first. And once a budget pistol gives you modularity, optics readiness, familiar handling, and real range confidence, the expensive gun has to prove something bigger than polish. The RXM is practical, not fancy. But practical gets ugly when it performs this close. And the next one brought duty gun confidence at a price that felt almost insulting. The SAR9 Gen 3 did not try to impress me, and that was the strange part. I was standing at the glass, judging it before I even touched it. Cheap duty-size pistol. Not famous enough to win the counter conversation. Not expensive enough to make people lean in and whisper about the trigger. I was already half gone. Then the guy behind the counter said, "Pick it up before you judge it." So I did. And that is where the SAR9 separated itself from the usual budget surprise story. It did not feel flashy. It did not feel like it was begging me to call it underrated. It just sat in my hand like a boring duty pistol that already knew its job. No awkward grip hunting, no hollow toy feeling, no cheap controls asking for forgiveness. The frame locked in, the balance made sense, and nothing about it felt nervous. Later that week, the range only confirmed what the counter already told me. Fast transitions, rushed grip, no warm-up. The SAR9 stayed settled, not custom smooth, not premium pretty, just controlled, steady, and weirdly serious for the money. That is what makes it dangerous. A lot of expensive pistols sell drama. The SAR9 sells work. And when a budget gun feels this honest under pressure, some $2,000 pistols start sounding like they are charging extra for applause. Honestly, I wanted the Canik SFX Rival to shut up. Not the pistol, the reputation. Everywhere you look, somebody talks about it like it found a cheat code. Best trigger, best value, shoots flat, runs fast, makes expensive competition pistols sweat. After a while, I got tired of hearing it, so I brought one out with a bad attitude. No warm-up, no gentle first mag. I went straight at it. like I was trying to catch the lie. The little wobble, the cheap reset, the moment where the gun reminds you, hey, I still cost less for a reason. That moment never came. The trigger broke so clean, it almost felt disrespectful. The reset snapped back fast. The sight tracked flat. And on transitions, the Rival did not feel like it was asking to join the competition gun conversation. It felt like it had already been sitting there. That is why this gun bothers expensive pistols so much. It does not win by looking richer. It wins by giving shooters the stuff they actually feel under speed. Trigger, control, accuracy, rhythm. No, I would not carry it all day. It is big, loud, and built more for the range than the belt. But once the shooting starts, the Rival stops acting like the budget option, and the last gun takes that argument into the 1911 world, where prices get ugly fast. I walked into that shop already prepared to do something stupid with my wallet. Not emotional stupid, planned stupid. I had been looking at high-end double-stack 1911s, the kind everybody treats like the finish line. Beautiful fit, clean finish, smooth slide. The whole premium 2011 attitude, where the gun almost convinces you the price is normal before you even touch the trigger. Then, the Tisas 1911 DS carry showed up and made the whole plan feel uncomfortable. It was sitting there without the rich guy glow. No dramatic polish, no look at me energy. Just a budget double stack 1911s sitting too close to guns that cost a lot more. I wanted to ignore it. Then a guy in the next lane said, "Shoot mine before you spend that money." That sentence ruined me. The Tisas did not feel as refined as the expensive one. You could see where the money was saved. The finish was not as pretty, the fitting was not as perfect, but then steel started ringing. The sight settled. The trigger did its job. The gun gave me enough control, speed, and confidence that my $2,000 excuse started sounding weak in my own head. That is the problem with the Tisas. It does not have to beat every premium 2011 detail. It only has to get close enough that spending $2,000 starts feeling less like a smart upgrade and more like pride with a receipt. The Grand Power K100 is the kind of pistol people mention quietly. Not because it is weak, because they know what happens when too many shooters start paying attention. I kept hearing the same thing from guys who actually shoot, not hype guys, not counter experts. Just range rats who would say K100, then move on like they had already said too much. So I finally took one out, expecting a decent oddball. Nothing more. Then the recoil felt wrong. Not bad wrong. Suspicious wrong. It didn't up and fight its way back down like a normal striker pistol. It rolled, settled, and returned with this weird calmness that made the guns beside it feel busier than they needed to be. Rotating barrel system is the trick. You feel it more than you can. The pistol does not scream premium. It does not look like money. It does not sit there begging for attention. It just shoots, tracks, and quietly ruins your excuse for ignoring it. And that is why the K100 works perfectly as the bonus. Because after all the budget shockers, this one feels like the secret handshake. The strange one. The pistol you remember after the guns are back in their cases. Once people realize something this overlooked can feel this composed for this little money, the secret stops being fun, and a few expensive pistols start looking a lot less special. That was the only standard I cared about. Not the logo, not the price tag, not what some guy at the counter swore was duty grade. I wanted to know what happened when the shooting got ugly. Fast strings, rushed grip, sweaty hands, bad timing. The kind of run where a pistol either helps you recover or starts charging you interest. And that is what bothered me. Some expensive guns still felt expensive, sure, but these budget pistols got close enough to make the whole price game feel suspicious. Not perfect, not magic, but good enough to make you ask the question nobody likes asking. How much of that $2,000 pistol is performance? And how much is pride? Drop the budget gun that shocked you most. I'm Steve, and expensive does not always mean better.